Welcome back to Let's Talk, Amberlynn's series of pseudo-honest confessionals where sincerity is mimed, criticism is cherry-picked, and personal growth is treated like an aesthetic. Trendy, but ultimately unpurchased. She opens with her sweet and sour segment, a clever name for what's essentially her reading mean comments aloud so she can pretend they don't hurt her. One commenter calls her cringe and not clever. It's an observation so accurate it belongs on her medical chart. Her response? We can agree to disagree. No, we cannot. Facts are not up for debate. We're then treated to a discussion about her masturbatory capabilities, because of course we are. This is Amberlynn Reid, where dignity goes to die. It's not that the question wasn't grotesque, it was, but she didn't need to answer it. She wanted to, because oversharing is her brand, and being vulgar under the guise of body positivity gives her just enough plausible deniability to get away with it. She claims she's always been about body positivity, and in the same breath confessing she thinks she's ugly. And rather than exploring why she sees herself that way, or how it's linked to years of performative weight loss and constant validation seeking, she just throws up a picture of Tess Holliday like that settles the matter. Look, an obese woman I find attractive. Case closed. Amber, we're not looking for your Pinterest board, we're looking for consistency. Then one viewer shares a genuinely touching moment, earning their masters at 36. Amberlynn celebrates like she's hosting a TED Talk. But of course she pivots right back to herself. That's how I feel a lot too. Because even your accomplishments are just springboards for her monologues. And finally, to the person who doesn't have Instagram, Amberlynn offers the lukewarm reassurance that you're not missing much. She says this is a Q&A on steroids, but it's more like a Q&A on benzos. It's bloated, slow, and detached from reality. Now we enter the sipping community segment, which I'm still convinced came out of an AI and not an adult human. It's essentially just more questions from her ever-dwindling pool of enablers and hate watchers. She says, I am the problem, in some cases. It's brave and revolutionary, and unoriginal. She says she's admitted it ad nauseum, again, which is Amberlynn code for I've said the words but never applied the lesson. She insists that she's villainized, naturally. The perpetual victim narrative returns for its 11th season. But my personal highlight? If people think I'm nothing but a liar, then why are you watching? This is a woman who begs for views and then scolds people for giving them. Make it make sense. She continues, yes, she lies, but only to protect the people she loves. What a noble martyr. When it comes to herself, she claims, I don't give a fuck, I have nothing to lose. And that is the only truthful statement she's ever made. And then someone asks, do you ever get tired of talking about yourself? You'd think the answer would be yes, if only for sheer repetition. But she answers with the emotional range of a paper towel. I do get tired of it, but this is my job. Amberlynn, this is not your job. It's your broadcasted identity crisis. As for hobbies, she insists that she has too many. Of course, this is a woman who collects interests the way a toddler collects stickers, with enthusiasm, no depth, and zero intention of follow-through. Then we get the classic, I did do follow-up care, check the vlogs. Yes, go watch hours of aimless footage while she half mentions a scan between mukbangs and hauls. Nothing says responsible medical aftercare like using CT scans for vlog filler. And finally, she admits to being controlling in past relationships. Controlling, obsessed, emotionally extreme. She says it like a self-diagnosed quirk. It's not. It's a warning label. But of course, the moment of insight lasts about 12 seconds before she douses it in vague sentimentalism and cries, there was also love, I have proof. What proof? A screenshot of a Hallmark text and a photo of Beck being forced to eat that chili? If love ever existed, it died in captivity. Then we get the Linterview segment. Amberlynn's opportunity to hand-select compliments disguised as questions and questions disguised as praise. It's like watching a magician perform with clear acrylic cards. We can see the trick. You're not fooling anyone. The first question is about which reaction channel she would erase. And what does she choose? Not the most vile, not even the cruelest. Nope. She chooses the most predictable ones, the ones who question her most inconvenient narratives. She accuses Mr. Snowflake and the ankle of planting false labels. Imagine being so terrified of accountability. Then we meet an actually thoughtful voice memo, someone with BPD expressing hope, doubt, and relatability in equal measure. It's a rare and vulnerable moment. And what does Amber do with it? She cherry-picks it into a bland anecdote about her relationship. I regret being controlling, she says with the emotional weight of someone announcing that their coffee has gone cold. It's not remorse, it's rebranding. Next, someone asks, what's something you said publicly you wish you could take back? She chooses her teenage abuse story. Not for the story's sake, but for the reaction to it, I'm sure. She wishes she hadn't told us, because we didn't respond the way she wanted. Regret, in her world, is PR damage, not internal growth. Next caller, the dream date scenario. I braced myself and I still wasn't prepared. She paints this soft focus fantasy of Vegas casinos, flirtation, goo-goo eyes and passion, which she repeats like she's trying to summon it through incantation. We end with a question about education, a glimmer of something substantial. She says she'd study psychology. Of course she would. She's pathologically obsessed with herself. But what she doesn't realise is that studying psychology requires confronting hard truths, not just collecting diagnostic buzzwords like Pokemon. And the final memo is a viewer from Scotland who shockingly doesn't believe Beck and insists that they believe you, Amberlynn. Cue the syrupy response, the tea, the victimhood, and the people just want to hate me. We know. We've been told. Every week for a decade. And now it's time for tea or tail, her chance to hand-select rumours and apply a self-administered not guilty verdict while basking in her own moral superiority. It's a courtroom where she's judge, jury, defendant, and witness all at once. First rumour, she hasn't been diagnosed with BPD. Amber immediately leaps to defend a badge of disordered honour. I was absolutely diagnosed, the psychologist just didn't specialise in BPD. She's basically saying, the diploma is real, it's just printed on paper towels. Let's be clear, there is a difference between being diagnosed and understanding the diagnosis. And even more distance between understanding it and weaponising it to excuse toxic behaviour. Amberlynn has not accepted her diagnosis. She curated it, polished it, and displayed it on a shelf as a disclaimer. Next, the AirPod theory. A bizarre fan conspiracy, yes, but her rebuttal only reveals more. I don't like silence, I always have to be listening to something. It's not the silence that terrifies her, it's introspection. She treats quiet like a haunted house. God forbid she be alone with her own thoughts long enough for self-awareness to echo. Next is the big one. Amberlynn is an alcoholic, and she comes out swinging, offended, performatively wounded, and still somehow smug. I only have a few drinks on livestream, I didn't even drink last night, and it's offensive to say otherwise. Offensive, maybe, but not entirely false. Alcoholism isn't measured in how much you drink. It's about why you drink, and what happens when you do. If you can only face your live streams with a white claw in hand, that's not social drinking. That's coping in a can. And the fact that she brings it up unprompted, like she's doing damage control before the accusation arrives. It's not reassurance. She said it's painful because she grew up with alcoholics. Every time she senses the heat rising, she floods the room with trauma and drowns the conversation. We are never, ever allowed to hold her accountable, because somewhere in the 1990s, someone else made a mistake. This isn't a discussion, it's just a presentation. Amberlynn isn't seeking truth. She's narrating a fable in real time and adjusting the story with every gust of backlash. She wants the world to believe she's flawed but forgivable, broken but beautiful, the protagonist in pain. But what she really is just the author of her own downfall, and she refuses to rewrite the ending. The final segment is Bad Choices, a fitting name given the source material. She ends this Let's Talk with 5 quirky questions, presumably to show how fun and relatable she is. Have you ever been punched in the face? Yes, and yet somehow the emotional punches she delivers to everyone around her leave deeper bruises. It's fascinating. Would you enjoy being the opposite sex for the day? Naturally. One must imagine being anyone else would be refreshing when you've spent this long marinating in your own chaos. Do you think you'll age well? No. Finally, a moment of honesty. Have you ever had more than 8 shots in a night? Of course, but remember she's not an alcoholic. She just enjoys feeling that little buzz and warping reality. Would you spend the night in a porta potty for $10,000? And this is the question she considers with all the gravity of a major life decision. And why not? She's already spent years in a metaphorical one. She'd sit there and scroll Instagram, maybe vlog. She's been doing both from the emotional equivalent of a porta potty for a decade. And it shows. She ends the video with a chirpy, "I hope you guys enjoyed," blissfully unaware that this was less content and more case study. And so another episode ends. Another symphony of delusion conducted by a woman who cannot distinguish between self-awareness and self-obsession. She admits to being controlling, she admits to being obsessive, she admits to being exhausting. And yet every admission is dipped in sugar and served with a wink. Oops, tee, guess I'm the problem. No, you're not just the problem. You're the pattern. You don't need new hobbies. You don't need another live stream. You need accountability, and you've never met her.